Hi, this video is to familiarize you with the NWEA growth reports and the instructional implications that come from those reports. So the reports that we know right now, or that you should know, are the class report, the class breakdown by goal, and the student progress report. If this is the first training that you've received, this will also be a good tutorial to let you know what's going on with each of those reports. Anytime that you are looking for a report, as long as you are logged into your NWEA dashboard, you can click on View Reports, Map Growth Reports, and then that will pull up this screen, which in this section right here are all of the map growth reports that you would need to look at. So the first one that we're going to take a look at is the class report, and the class report is right here. So if you click on Class Report, then it will load this screen. As you're going through, there are a few things to know for any report that you are going to run. The first thing to know is that your term rostered is going to come from whatever period you want to look at. So if you were interested in looking at your fall results, then you would need to look at that term rostered. If you were interested in looking at your winter ones, that would need to be the term rostered that you were looking for, and then that should match the term tested. And so as you're going through, you'll want to do that. You're welcome to select one class or more than one class, but obviously you've got to at least select one. And then down here at the bottom where the subject is, you're again welcome to have them all selected, or you're welcome to just limit that to the ones that you specifically would like to see. And then down here at the bottom, you can see that there are other report options that you can run by. Really, all of this is fine. The only thing that you would like to do is change this to goal RIT ranges, and then you're going to click Create PDF Report. Once you've clicked that Create PDF Report, it is going to let you know that this is report is being generated, and again, this will be true for any report that you run, and most of those reports will then be found in the reports queue, and so that's where it'll take you. And then if it is a small report that has been run, or you haven't run all your classes, it should show up pretty quickly. If not, it may take a little while, and you're welcome to refresh as many times as you need to in order to find that. So this is what your class report would look like. And so in your class report, it just breaks these things down to some important information. And so you can see the average RIT score, the median RIT score for your class, the standard deviation. And so the standard deviation is honestly one of the most important pieces that comes from this, because the higher this number is, the more variation there is between your students. So the lower the standard deviation, the more evidence you have for whole class instruction. The higher the standard deviation, the more evidence you have for needing to differentiate what you do. The class report also will show you summaries that look like this. It'll summarize the overall performance, and what's great about this is that the RIT ranges that NWEA gives you, it will also break these down kind of in this color-coded format. You can kind of think of this as the bell curve, and so that's really important to know. It also will graph really the number of students and your percentages over here, so at a glance you can kind of see where your students are at overall with your test, but also based on your different goal areas. Important information. In your class report, it's also going to break things down by student. And so for that, you're going to be able to see what their ranges are in all of these different areas, and you'll be able to see for their goal performance areas where they landed for that particular student. What's great about what NWEA does is that everything is always a range. NWEA does not pretend that they make no errors. And so because they function a lot on, if you think about the bell curve, they know that there is always going to be a margin of error. NWEA's is incredibly small, and they're very proud of that. But what that means is that the reason that everything is always in a range is because they are trying to be apparent and transparent that they know that they're not perfect. The next one that we can talk about is the class breakdown by goal report. If you're on this screen, again, you just go back to your map growth report screen, and you will be able to click on class breakdown. Once this screen loads, again, you're going to want to make sure that your term rostered and your term tested match, and then you'll make sure that your school name and your instructor name are here, and then you'll go through and you will pick a class. What's great about the class breakdown report is that it's going to allow you to do two things. It's going to allow you to take a look at your class as a whole in those RIT bands. It also is going to allow you to have direct links to the learning continuum, which is a really powerful place to be, especially for reading ELA and math teachers. When you're running this, you do want to run it by goal. And then you're going to want to choose your subject area, although if you miss that part, and this is what makes this report really relevant for potentially science and social studies teachers as well, if you want to run it based on a different course, you're welcome to. And then what you want to do is you want to click review that report online, and then it will go here and it will actually show you a breakdown by goal and right where that specific student or those specific students fit in those different bands. Again, if I was a science or a social studies teacher, this might be a report that I actually generate anytime that I want to take a look at doing some reading in my class. And so even though I don't give the reading test, that one is a really good one to just be able to see, okay, where are students falling specifically in the reading and evaluating informational text. And if I were going to kind of group these into some different areas, if I was looking at this particular class, I would know that really I probably only need 2 different articles or texts for my kids to look at, maybe one that is a little bit higher level and maybe one that's more middle of the road. If I was looking at a different class and there were a lot more students that were down in these lower ranges, it might let me know that I either need to provide more scaffolding for the same kind of text or that I need to potentially provide 3 different texts that they can take a look at. The student progress report is another good one. Again, all those get run in the MAP growth reports section. And so for this one, all it's going to do is it's going to show you where students are as compared to their peers, as compared to other ones in the district and nationally. These are also the progress reports that are sent home by administrators. So a couple of new reports that we took a look at this time are the Achievement Status and Growth Report, the Growth Report with Quadrant chart, and then a Student Profile Report. So the Achievement Status and Growth Report, again, the Achievement Status and Growth Reports are seated right here. And so you have the projection or the summary, which is this first one, and then the summary with the quadrant chart. In the Achievement Status and Growth Summary, again, you're going to run these reports exactly the same as we ran those first 2. It'll give you some of the same information, like the RIT ranges and the percentile range and things along those lines that you might have seen in other reports. However, this one is also going to address whether or not students went up or down. Did they meet their projected RIT score or did they not? And so Central Office has put together 5 factors that may impact a student's test score. Those include a lot of things that as teachers we're already familiar with, but they're good things to know just to make sure that if a parent calls or has a question that you would be kind of empowered with that information. So those include environmental factors, student factors, standard test error, which again, this one is probably the most important one that we can talk about because since NWEA does not claim to be perfect, what that means is that it's possible for a student's RIT range in the fall to be between 184 and 190, but their reported RIT score was reported as a 187. Well, if we had tested this student many more times, we might have found that their actual score was really closer to that 184, the bottom bound of that RIT range. And so as you're going through and looking at that, if they got a new true score of 186 when they tested in the winter, that doesn't necessarily that they mean that they went down by a point. It may actually mean that they went up by 2, but because of where that score got reported within that range, it looks like they went down. And so, again, that's an important thing to know, and especially to know when talking to parents. And then there are always unknown factors. When you receive this email with this video, you should also get a link to this document that has all of those factors as well. So in this Achievement Status and Growth Summary report, it's also going to have an extra section that tells you, is this student growing or not? So it will tell you their projected RIT score, what that projected growth looked like, how they actually grew, what that looked like, and then did they meet their projected growth? Well, what's interesting about this is if it says yes, then obviously they're meeting that. If it says no, then obviously we would assume that they are not meeting it. However, That little symbol that's right next to any yes or any no technically means maybe. And what that means is that a student might not have met it or might have met it. And so really that symbol indicates that this score falls within that standard error like we were just talking about. And so that's really important to know when you're taking a look at this. Based on feedback from central office, they were talking about how if I was a teacher and I was interpreting this information, all of my no's with this little symbol, I would completely count as yeses. And all of my yeses with this symbol, I would also count as yeses. It's just good information for you to have. The other thing that this does is it gives you the conditional growth percentile. And that is one that I find to be incredibly helpful, because what this lets you know is how this student grew compared to other students who had scored similarly with their RIT scores. And so instead of saying, well, this student still is only performing better than, let's say, 46% of their peers, what this is saying is that this student grew better than 46% or than 99% of their peers. Again, an achievement percentile, which is the ones that we're normally used to looking at, would look like this. If the percentile is 80, then that means that the student's RIT score is higher than 80% of his or her grade level peers. If the conditional growth percentile is 80, then your student grew more than 80% of his or her grade level peers who started with the same RIT score. Again, powerful information. The other piece that you'll be given is kind of an overview of the achievement status and growth summary. It will give you the percentage of students who met or exceeded that projected RIT score. The goal for any particular teacher, any particular class, is around 50% or more. It will also give you a percent of projected growth met, and sometimes this can be more than 100% if you had students who were growing more than what their projected RIT score was. And then it will also give you the actual counts of students based on those same kind of criteria. So there's also an achievement status and growth summary with quadrant chart. Again, you'll find that right here in the achievement status and growth section. What's great about this chart is that when you run it, it will actually plot your students from a single class on a quadrant chart. And so you'll be able to add or take away different subjects that you want to be displayed. And what this is going to do is it's going to graph students based on those who had low achievement and low growth, high achievement and low growth, high achievement, high growth, or low achievement and high growth. And so what's great about that is our low achievement, high growth kids, we're hoping that those are our students who are receiving services in one of our RTI tiers, and there are definitely celebrations that are to be had here. Down here are our students that we want to even dig into more. If they are low achieving and low growth, we want to make sure that A, they're for sure receiving services in an RTI tier, and B, we may want to shift some of the ways that we are trying to provide those services for them to really help them meet some more of their growth. On the flip side of things, some of our high achieving students who are in tier 1, it's important for us to take a look at this, because if they are high achieving but low growth, we would hope that maybe they would be receiving a little bit more help in those tier 1 situations, as opposed to, again, these students who are high achieving, high growth, there's definitely celebrations to be had there. So this is a really useful report for anybody. And so the last one is the student profile report, and the student profile exists right down here, and you're able to see all students that you have that are rostered to you. You'll be able to see a breakdown of their math, their reading, their language, and their science. These are different tabs that you'll be able to click on, and there just is a wealth of information here. Honestly, this report would not be used unless you wanted to have a specific conference with a student about maybe some areas where they're a little bit lower. If they're not on track, it'll give you an ACT projection. And if you want to drill down, if a parent is asking for maybe some extra things that they can be doing at home, you can really drill down and dig in here for things that they need to be reinforced, introduced, and things of that nature. The last thing that it'll show you is it'll graph where the student is. It'll show you these colors are the RIT bands, and it'll show you how they are comparing to other peers. The only thing that's left to do now is decide how you can use these reports and this data to make those things work for you and for your students and to drive your instructional decisions.